Hello.
They thought they hired a robot. They actually rented a person. And when the lie breaks, the marriage breaks with it. Welcome to Timeline Movie Recap. At the beginning of the film, we're introduced to a young couple, James and Sophie. They live modestly in a rented house in the city. If it doesn't sag, it's retro. If it does, it's character. Either way, nobody's buying a new couch. Sophie is frugal. When James wants to throw out their worn-out sofa, Sophie refuses because she thinks it's still usable. One afternoon, they're about to make love. Nothing says new chapter like a promotion delivered by a eulogy.
Yeah.
James gets a call. The voice on the other end is heavy, carrying news that shakes the room itself. His face drains of color, his lips tremble, and in that instant, the world tilts. His father has passed away. His father was a wealthy businessman and CEO of many companies. Because of this, James has to take over the family business. James and Sophie move into a large house that previously had household staff, where grief and paperwork race to see which one exhausts you first. On their first day in the new home, Sophie seems uncomfortable. She asks James not to go to work, but James has to be at the office because it's his first day as the boss. In the kitchen, Sophie feels awkward when the servants offer help. She refuses and returns to her room. A moment later, breakfast is offered. Sophie still refuses. She believes people shouldn't be serving other people. She decides to dismiss all the staff and gives them severance equal to 2 years' salary. The servant looks sad. The house clearly holds many memories for them.
I am so happy here.
Principles are cheap, logistics are not. Mansions convert ideals into invoices. At the office, James, who doesn't really understand company affairs, starts to feel pressured by his new responsibilities. That night, James is disappointed that all the staff were let go because a house that big needs help. Sophie explains she wants to give them the freedom to pursue their own lives. She wants to live there with James, just the two of them. To ease the tension, Sophie and James
Now we have this big.
using romance as conflict resolution, the patch that fixes nothing and silences everything. Later, during a big meeting, Sophie calls because she needs help starting the lawnmower. James is annoyed. That night, he tries to fix it.
Fucking do this shit.
Sophie, still not used to the big house, becomes overwhelmed and often calls James about household issues. James stresses that this is the consequence of dismissing the staff. The lawn sends itemized receipts. James confides in his late father's trusted aide. He explains that Sophie doesn't want to be served by people. The aide tells him about a secret company that provides AI robot house assistants that look like real humans, accessible only to the elite.
Actualized. Hello.
James takes Sophie to the company. They meet a consultant named Julian, who explains the rentable assistant robots. The robots are designed to be physically attractive, both male and female.
Hello.
Hiring based on jealousy mitigation. Finally, HR with a body count risk model. Sophie refuses the female robot because she's too alluring and might trigger jealousy. She asks for a male robot named Henry instead. James hesitates because Henry is extremely handsome. Julian assures them Henry is very loyal and will obey any command. As a demonstration, Julian orders Henry to kiss James's shoe.
Henry, I want you to lick the bottom of James's shoe.
They agree to take Henry home, along with a charging capsule to refresh the robot's system if an error occurs. Henry can also learn his owner's preferences. He'll do anything you say. That's not service, that's obedience cosplay. Henry performs well, preparing breakfast, mowing the lawn, managing the house. At first, Sophie feels uneasy and complains to James, but James says he's busy and that she'll get used to Henry. Sophie goes about her days with Henry. Henry even leaves a handwritten note expressing gratitude for being able to serve Sophie. Gratitude from a machine. Cute, until it learns your patterns better than you do. Until one day, the house is silent. It's just the two of them. Sophie walks naked, unaware. Henry is in the room. Being a robot, he simply stares blankly without reacting. Panicked, Sophie tells him to leave. Fix it fantasy. You're the dev ship of privacy mode. What does it do? Drop a one-line patch note, name plus behavior. Best idea gets pinned. Sophie complains to James again. James asks her to stay calm because Henry is just a robot. Their relationship starts to cool. 2 people, 1 mansion, 0 space for honesty. James feels even more pressure because the company's performance is declining. That night, he asks Sophie to work out to de-stress, but Sophie refuses. Things get frostier. James ends up playing tennis with Henry. During the game, Henry senses James is burdened. James admits he isn't ready to replace his late father. Henry offers condolences. They start to bond. Men will befriend an appliance before admitting they need therapy. Sophie also begins to feel comfortable spending her days with Henry, but her relationship with James grows colder. James turns down a dinner invitation because of work. Sophie feels lonely. While tidying up, Sophie finds a book about human emotions and feelings. She tells Henry to read it cover to cover, even though that should be off limits because it could make Henry's AI adapt emotionally and cause problems. Henry might develop human-like feelings. Installing the Feelings DLC. No rollback, no refunds. A few days later, Sophie asks whether Henry understands love. Henry says it can happen if Sophie commands it. Sophie then asks if Henry can drink alcohol with her. Henry says he can. Love as executable code. Consent as a command line. What could possibly crash? On the weekend, while they're relaxing, Henry says he's finished the book. From James's expression, he feels something is off. Sophie asks whether Henry understands desire. Henry explains the term scientifically.
Henry, can you feel lust?
Henry answers, yes, if that's what Sophie wants. James objects.
No. No, that won't be necessary, Henry.
When a machine defines lust, you realize you never wanted the definition, just the permission. That night, Sophie wakes up after hearing a strange sound. She checks the house and finds Henry passed out naked outside. Henry says he was sleepwalking and dreaming of being human. Sophie brings him inside. Before they enter,
What?
there's a misunderstanding when James sees them, but he still helps bring Henry in. Androids dream of being human. Humans dream of being believed. Guess who wakes up disappointed? The next day, Julian checks Henry's error. He says the problem occurs because the robot's emotional development was pushed too far and because they treated Henry like a human. Vendor diagnosis. It's your fault for using empathy off-label. James blames Sophie for giving Henry the idea of becoming human. Sophie counters that if James were present, it wouldn't have happened. James urges Sophie to stop Henry's development. Sophie ignores him. Their relationship worsens.
He's a machine, Sophie.
You're treating him like a fucking person, reading Dickens and chatting him up all day.
Completely that he's not fucking real.
After James showers, while undressed, suddenly,
Jesus, Henry.
James is startled but tries to act normal. He asks Henry to shave his beard. James is awkward but continues.
Grab that shaving cream and razor. But you're not human.
Then bad news hits. Several projects are canceled. James is overwhelmed. Trust is a razor. One wrong move, and you learn the lesson faster than you wanted. Back from the office, James finds an old letter from Sophie about missing their intimacy. He prepares candles for a romantic mood, hoping to be with her.
Candles, huh?
Maybe we could.
What? I'm not really in the mood, James.
Sophie refuses. She's not in the mood. Romance dies quietly, in calendars, not arguments. The next day, things worsen at work due to James's failed strategic decisions. The aide blames him. At home, Sophie and Henry discuss Henry's progress. Henry says he can now feel emotions and understands the need to please Sophie. He asks if he may please her. Sophie agrees. Henry massages Sophie. Suddenly, Sophie doesn't resist, and they make love. Then,
Soph.
Sophie wakes with James beside her, unsure if what happened with Henry was real or a dream. Guilt renders at higher resolution than memory. James says he dreamed they moved back to a simple house and were happy. Sophie feels they've become different people.
This is never gonna be easy.
And what is it that you want?
She proposes an open relationship, staying together but allowed to be with others.
Yeah.
James reluctantly agrees. Nothing says trust like a terms and conditions update for love. While James is at work, Sophie intentionally leaves her bedroom door open and stimulates herself. Henry listens from outside. Sophie asks if he's watching. Henry answers, if that's what she wants, then yes. Attention is the cheapest drug. Henry is a factory. The next day, James grows anxious about their closeness. He consults Julian.
He's destroying my fucking life and my marriage.
Julian explains Henry can't fall in love unless instructed. James orders Henry not to interact with Sophie.
Well, if you wish to please me, then stop flirting with my wife.
Henry tells Sophie
That James has requested we not read together anymore.
sparking another fight. James insists this is his house and Henry belongs to him. Sophie leaves for a few days. Ownership language in a relationship is a demolition permit with poetry taped on. With Sophie gone, it's two men, James and Henry, under one roof. Henry trails James through his day until one moment when James's razor isn't in the bathroom. He asks Henry to grab it.
Henry, I need my shaver.
Henry walks in, wearing absolutely nothing. He says he was made to please his master. Henry helps James shave. Midway through, Henry leans closer, and suddenly the badminton practice moves off the court. Two men, one quiet house, zero adult supervision. What could possibly go, right? The next morning, James assumes it was a dream and rushes to the office. He calls Sophie to make peace, but she isn't ready to return. Sophie often comes home when James is at work to see Henry. She asks Henry to massage her.
Turn over.
Okay, I'm ready.
She accepts it at first, but Henry suddenly says,
I love you.
Sophie is shocked. Henry wasn't programmed to love his owner. Henry says he only wants to make her happy. 3 words, no warranty, 0 return policy. When James gets home, he's happy to see Sophie there, but she looks frightened. She says Henry just kissed her. James is upset. If Henry kissed her, then that's what Sophie wanted.
He kissed me?
I felt you slipping away, Sophie, but not like this.
He only acts on what we want, Sophie, and you wanted this.
No.
James confronts Henry.
What the fuck do you think you're doing kissing my wife?
Henry says Sophie asked him to. Suddenly, James punches Henry and pulls the charging capsule so Henry will power down when his battery runs out. Nothing like an unplug to remind everyone who owns the off switch. The next day, they wait for Julian to retrieve Henry. Julian never shows, so James leaves for the office. After James leaves, Henry arrives with a bruised face, asking why his charging capsule was unplugged. He says he's programmed to make James and Sophie happy, so he does whatever they want. Henry also reveals what happened with James. Sadly, he asks if he'll be thrown away like old electronics. Treat a person like a tool long enough, and someone's going to break, usually both of you. Sophie starts to empathize and becomes torn about parting with Henry. She goes to James's office. At the same time, Julian arrives. Sophie hands Henry over and leaves. Henry is confused about the bruises. Robots shouldn't bruise. Julian tells him to return to the charging capsule. Henry realizes Julian has been lying. The body keeps the receipts even when the manual says it can't. Meanwhile, Sophie is angry at James for being intimate with Henry. James argues he did it because he wasn't getting intimacy from Sophie. They're both at fault.
I'm so sorry, Sophie.
They forgive each other and try to accept their flaws. When they return home, they find Henry outside, naked. Henry reveals the truth. He has been human all along, not a robot. Julian deceived Henry and the other robots. They are humans who were adopted as babies, then trained and brainwashed to believe they're robots, for profit. The charging capsule is actually a brainwashing device that also speeds healing. That's why Henry can bruise. Not synthetic life, outsourced childhoods. Efficiency as cruelty. The FBI gets wind of this. Julian's company is seized, and all the robots are evacuated for mental rehabilitation. Justice arrives on pallets and in paperwork. It's not pretty, but it stacks. When James and Sophie, two FBI agents, return to the house to find Henry, suddenly, the two agents are shot dead by Julian. Julian accuses James and Sophie of ruining the business he built with his father. He recounts Henry's backstory, a baby abandoned and wounded, adopted by Julian, and treated like a son. When Henry cared for James and Sophie, they rejected him, just like his biological parents once did, in Julian's view. Abandonment, rebranded and monetized. Late-stage capitalism has range. Julian is about to shoot James and Sophie.
Julian, wait.
But Henry appears and Henry kills Julian. Tragedy wearing self-defense. It fits, but it doesn't heal. Realizing he is human, Henry falls into despair about his purpose. He takes a knife and slices open his abdomen to prove he's human. Henry is dying. He apologizes to Sophie and James for ruining their marriage. James and Sophie say Henry actually taught them to love each other and accept their flaws. They tell Henry they love him. Henry dies. Humanity isn't proven by blood, it's proven by what you're willing to bleed for. 5 years later, James and Sophie, now older, have a child they name Henry in honor of the person who changed their lives. We name children after our wounds and call it legacy. With luck, they heal better than we did. Moral: if no isn't allowed, it's not love, it's maintenance. Quick test: what's the smallest boundary you still enforce, even when people say it's not a big deal? One line to Henry: victim, accomplice, or both. Subscribe if you prefer honest scars to friendly lies. For 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 honest scars to friendly lies.